So whenever you're ready, and then Brandon, I'm gonna have you.
I just start with my name, right? My name is Maria Korobkova or Miss Korobkova. Which one do you want?
Whatever is natural for you.
What's the usual?
They just say first and last name.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me adjust this, and then the paper. Make sure you don't rattle the paper, because the mic will pick it all up. Okay, you're on. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Maria Korobkova from District 21. I teach at Abraham Lincoln High School, 9th grade U.S. History.
Perfect. Okay, first question is, how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge? What was taught before the lesson and what will come after it?
Well, we have been studying the unit on the Cold War, and the students have been exposed to several documents about the containment of the communists, Vietnam War, and war in Korea. And this allowed them to kind of tie everything together and use other documents and as well as the online resources to kind of tie it all together, make connections and cite evidence and make a broader, kind of broaden their knowledge about the Cold War and see pros and cons for it instead of just giving them what I want them to know. They were able to arrive at their own conclusions.
Good. Is the text used in this lesson part of a sequence of texts designed to build skills and knowledge?
Well, all of the texts that I use in my lessons are for building up the skills, especially on the 9th grade level where we set the foundation for them to be successful through the high school and as they enter college. So the text was absolutely necessary. It built the skills as to citing specific evidence, making connections, and allow them to kind of come up and arrive at their own conclusions and make assumptions which they had to back up with evidence. So I felt like okay, I'm so bad at this.
No, you're doing great. You're great. You can pick it up from...
You know, I'm just a self-centered person, so I can't talk about me. Can I get somebody else to talk about me? She was here, she can talk about me.
You're doing fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, can I start over? I'm sorry.
Do you want to start over on that
Yeah.
one?
I promise I looked at the questions.
Okay, so...
It's so different when you're actually in front of the thing that records
right,
you.
no, I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're doing fine.
Okay, so can you repeat the question, please?
So, is the text used in this lesson part of a sequence of texts designed to build skills and knowledge?
Okay, so all of the texts that I use in my lessons are designed to build skills. It's especially important on the 9th grade level because we're building foundations for the success through high school and college. So therefore, we feel as a department it's important to build those necessary skills such as citing textual evidence, making connections, arriving at their own conclusion and backing up with evidence, and elaborating on the quotes that they used as evidence in their Socratic seminar. And this will help them write better argumentative essays.
Talk about the standards targeted in the lesson.
So some of the standards that I targeted in this lesson were about comparing and contrasting different situations in the same time period. I made sure that the documents that I provided my students with had pro and cons on the same topic. However, I did not tell them which one was a pro, which one is a con, because I feel like by May, it is very important for them to be able to already differentiate which document would support the claim and which one would counterclaim their existing claim. And I also left room for them to interpret documents vice versa as well, as long as they can explain and justify why they used that evidence in the format that they used and in the way they used it. I also targeted the specific textual evidence. I made sure that they always use quotes, and I tell them that it's about what you can prove. They're my little historical detectives. They gather the evidence, they analyze it, they talk about it in a group, and then they both arrive at the same claim or counterclaim. And if there is discrepancy, I always come up and they try to weigh in what works, what doesn't, and why, and how that textual evidence is applicable. And we, as a department, we pride ourselves on always having writing in our lessons. So as you could see in the graphic organizers, they're all filled in. They all have textual evidence, explanations, claims, and I also have them predict the counterclaim as well. Again, it helps them very much when we start our argumentative essay the following day. And I also targeted the use of technology. I provide my students with the tablets as a reference source because I tell them that it's important to make sure that their sources are credible. So for each document, they looked up where exactly it came from, who was the author, what is the background of the author, and if they had alternative motives for publishing the document that they published. Because it's important for them to be able to differentiate that if a person has a certain position or political position, that they will produce documents aiming and fulfilling their agenda. So that was very important in this lesson as well.
Good. Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplifies?
I actually had a question about that one.
Sure.
Sorry.
No. Okay, so you're on.
So the students were able to hit all three standards. The questions were text-dependent questions. The students did involve themselves in a discussion about the text, about the claims, about the counterclaims, and most importantly, the evidence that they used and evaluation of them, as well as justification of the use of the evidence. That was an important component with this project that I do with them.
Discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Well, before even the Common Core really took off, I've always made sure that my students were exposed to a lot of text, and I came up with the text-dependent questions. The way that we as a department actually became very aligned with the Common Core standards is that we create the bundles that are all text-based with scaffolds for the students that might not be on the same level to make sure that they're still exposed to the same text, but have help and guidance with being able to read through the text. So even though they struggle a little bit, the main point is that in the end, they all get the same skill out of it and they build onto it. And as the year progresses, the scaffolding gets less and less and less, and the ultimate goal is for all students to be able to read the text as is. And my assistant principal, Ryan Fanning, also made sure that we use the credible sources, that our students are challenged every day, and that we provide rigorous text for them to do. And he also helps us with how to scaffold them and provide guidance for the students to make sure that they do not get frustrated and give up, that it's just challenging enough for them to want to work through it because they know that they can.
How did you support all students in working with grade level text? For example, how did you provide scaffolding for students below grade level so they can read grade level text?
So we as a department, we came up with a reference sheet on how we scaffold each document. So in the beginning of the year, I would scaffold the text 4 different ways. You would have the text as is, then text with the bolded vocabulary words, so they had to look them up on their own. Then the third version would be the text with the bolded and the defined words. And then the fourth version would be the text, bolded words, definition, as well as the highlighted parts of where we want the students to focus. So by this point in the year, I've already reached the level where I only had to scaffold it two different ways, which is the main text and the text with the bolded letters, which is a huge improvement with the students. And it's great because we use the symbols and the students say, hey, I'm over here, I want to be here. And they create these goals for themselves. And it also helps us as a department, when we give out the worksheets, we know which worksheet goes to which student. And I also made sure that when I group my students, that I have a good balance, that I have one person that speaks very well and doesn't mind to be presented, one student that's excellent in finding evidence that will support another student that's still struggling with that. So their support system's always there, as well as I provide them with the dictionaries and the tablets in case they need to look up some information they're confused about. So that have been an excellent resource to use in the classroom, and it has helped my weaker and ELL students to achieve success in this class, especially.
What do you do for the more advanced students?
For more advanced students, they have several responsibilities, as well as they just get the text as is. My graphic organizers are scaffolded as well. The way I phrase the questions and or statements, as well as there is no guidance on my graphic organizers as I do with the scaffolded ones. So for example, when one of the statements was Soviet Union must be stopped at all costs, for my advanced students that there was no guidance. For the scaffolded, it would say, for example, space, race, etc., etc. So that way they at least could narrow down their search because they're not strong enough to tackle the entire bundle, we say by themselves. So therefore they still feel like they're part of the team, they're contributing, and they could still be successful and they feel accomplished when they actually get through it.
Good. Let's see, we are now. How do you know if the students were able to successfully respond to the text-dependent questions and tasks with precision?
Well, one of the indicators is that they feel confident when they present the material and they feel eager to tackle the statement of the question. As you saw, when they were in the inner circle, they were reaching for the talking piece because they wanted to share what their group and them have found together. Also, the fact that during the seminar, the students support their representative as well by passing them notes of other things that they found interesting, or if they hear something that they don't disagree with, they quickly look for the evidence to support that. So they're very engaged. And I collect the graphic organizers at the end, so I make sure that they all have claims and counterclaims, as well as the reflection of what they did.
So we're going to the core action 3 question. Did you
That's the one with the discussions, right?
So what behaviors from core action 3 did the students best exemplify?
Well, the best example was the discussions before even the Socratic seminar has begun, when they were in groups gathering all of the evidence, and I walked around and I used the reference sheets to see which student is gathering the evidence, which one is speaking, which one's pointing out the evidence and explains them. And it was nice to hear that each group that I have stopped, they were all discussing, they were either agreeing or disagreeing with the claim that another one found. They were able to apply their prior knowledge that they learned in class and make that connection to the actual text and say, hey, there was a domino theory. We wanted to stop the spread of communism, so this document was necessary to be published to the American public. And it's nice to see, especially...
Do you want to pick it up midway?
Sure.
Okay. So go wherever you're
It's nice to see freshmen to be able to have such high level discussion on a 9th grade level, because from here on, it's just they're only going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And discussion is one of the highest critical thinking skills that you can teach children, especially at a young age, and interpretation.
Reflecting on the lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently?
Well, as you understand, this routine does not happen overnight. I have built onto it. I started small. It used to take me a little bit longer, 3 days or so, to do the full Socratic seminar, getting them the routine, knowing that they all have responsibilities and roles. And then as the year progressed, they actually asked me to do more. The students did. They said that they really enjoyed it and they really understand the topic when they do it. So usually when we do one of these, the following day we do argumentative essays, and I've noticed the extreme success and improvement in their writing abilities, especially in argumentative essays, which is very difficult because you need to have counterclaim as well. So I saw that the writing not only got better, it got longer, and not longer with just repeating themselves, but actually using the evidence, applying the evidence, and just understanding the topic and the complexity of it, and understanding the complexity of the text. And in this lesson, I feel like some of the great things is that the kids knew the roles. They all knew who's going to be the scorer, who's going to be the coach that supports, who's going to represent. And I switch groups all the time. So they among themselves decide in that moment who's going to be doing what. What I think that needs more improvement still is sometimes they repeat one another but in a different way. And they don't see that they're doing that because they say it differently. And I don't want to not encourage that because they did find the correct evidence through, packet of documents. But my next step is to work on filtering out what's already been said and kind of using your own interpretation on it and not just repeating it in a different way. But I was very happy at the fact that they found most of the evidence that I wanted them to look for. I also like that they also made historical connections to previous units that we have studied, which was phenomenal, that they were able to draw that connection all the way from what we studied in November and bring it back to today, and also how it affects our society today. So it was very wonderful to see something like that from such a young age group.
Last question is, were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
Well, I have set up very high standards in my classroom, as well as the routines. And we have routines, everything from if you arrive late, you sign the book, to respecting one another. I know they're teenagers. I know they could misbehave here and there, but they're all accountable for their own behavior. And I felt like that was one of the most important things to teach them early on, and allow them to be always accountable in the way that when they do something that's inappropriate, they reflected in a letter to me with an apology of saying, I apologize for doing this, and then I keep them. So if they repeat the behavior, I'm like, but you promised on October 7th. So that sense of accountability and support, I felt like really helped bring my classroom together, because I do have 34 students and I need them to be manageable, and I need them to learn, I need them to build their skills. If I don't have the discipline and control of the classroom, it's very hard to do that. So therefore, each student is accountable, they support one another, and as you heard in the Socratic seminar, the way that they respond to one another, they use the appropriate language.
So they used appropriate language.
They used the appropriate language. I included for them a Socratic seminar, but they already used to it. I just included just in case as a reference source for teachers that don't have it. And that has tremendously helped as well, because I see the difference in their essays again, because now they're using those sentence starters, they're using that appropriate language. And inside the classroom, that's how they communicate. They'll say, I see your point, however, or I agree with this because, instead of just finger pointing, just saying whatever teenagers say. So in this classroom, there's always appropriate language, and there's always level of respect. We respect one another. We're all here for the same reason. We're here to learn and to build our skills. So whatever we have going on with one another is out the door. We're here, we're a family, and I feel like students do respond to that very well, and they feel welcome here and respected here, and most importantly, they feel that their ideas and their contributions always count, because they always receive feedback from me, whether in the electronic form or written form or verbal form.
Okay, you're done. Good work.
Sorry, I'm very bad at this.